Hello, my name is Ian J. Cole and welcome back to my channel. And I've just been accredited to be a reviewer for Edinburgh Fringe, the largest arts festival in the world. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at the top 10 things that you need to know before you go to Edinburgh Fringe. Right, so let's have a look at Edinburgh Fringe. And first of all, this isn't this year's press pass or media pass they call it. It's actually last year's, and I've also got the year before. Right, the 10 things that you need to know before you go to Edinburgh Fringe. Now, the first thing is to book well in advance, and it's too late really to get cheap accommodation. I booked my accommodation at the beginning of May. What I should have done was I should have booked it when I was straight after I got back from Edinburgh last year. At that point though, to be fair, I wasn't sure that I was actually going to be going, because it's a year in advance, and a lot of things happen. I try and go every year, but I don't always get there. So book your accommodation at Edinburgh as soon as possible. The reason being, it is ridiculously expensive to stay in Edinburgh. In the past, I've stayed in hotels. Last year, I stayed in the Premier Inn Hub. Booked it quite late, and the Premier Inn Hub is a cheap hotel. Basically, you get just a room. You're not even guaranteed to get a window. I stayed at the one in the Haymarket, and it was brilliant. We went for a week, and it cost about £100 a night. Now that's cheap for Edinburgh Festival Fringe. The way it sort of worked is it was cheaper certain nights, but the whole week turned out to be £100. I have previously stayed in Airbnbs, and if you can get them cheap enough, they're brilliant, and especially there's loads of you. 2 years ago there was 5 of us went, and we stayed in an Airbnb which was about a 10-minute walk from the Royal Mile, which is where most of the action happens, which was brilliant. The second thing that you need to be aware of when you're going to Edinburgh is you will need to take rain gear, because it rains in Scotland, and be prepared to do lots of walking. Edinburgh is quite a small city, or the centre of it is quite a small city, so most of the venues at Edinburgh Festival Fringe are within a 20 or a half an hour walking distance. But you will end up, if you plan your day, as we sometimes do, and I can go and see, well, nowadays I go to about 5 or 6 shows a day on average, but a few years ago I would easily go and see 10 shows a day. Now, you may find that this show finishes at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and your next show starts in 15 minutes and you need to hot-foot it 20 minutes away, this sort of stuff. So good sensible shoes, rain gear, all of that stuff is what you need for Edinburgh. Number 3, don't go and see someone just because they're famous or they've been on the telly. Because if they're a comedian who's been on the telly, a lot of what the material, they do new material, comedians. We sometimes see the comedians coming to our local theatre and they're doing their Edinburgh show on the way up to Edinburgh and they're working on it. But, it's more expensive to go and see people that are famous. So you won't get a cheap deal, and we'll talk about cheap deals in a little while. I do remember going to see Jason Manford long time before he was on the TV. He was at a free lunchtime show. It was a showcase for emerging comedians, and everybody was given 5 minutes to see how good they were, and he was really good. And I went to see his 1 hour show. This must have been 10-15 years ago. Then he started to appear on TV, and he was still using the same material that he used at Edinburgh for those first couple of years. And you tend to see that with comedians. So half of the beauty of Edinburgh is going to something and you're not quite sure what to expect. Showcases are great, especially for comedians. There's it is heavily weighted towards comedy, but there's theatre, there's music, there's drama, there's dance, and I would try and go to see a bit of everything, is what I try and do. The fourth thing you need to know, get your Fringe programme the minute it comes out. They're free and you may be able to find one in your local newsagents, but actually we haven't got a newsagent that has the Fringe. It's only ready in major cities, but you can order it online from the Fringe office. They just charge you the postage. There is also a really good Fringe app that you can subscribe to, and you can then build your own Fringe while you're looking at using the app. The other thing is, on the Fringe website, and I'll put all the links down below, there is a link to an online version of this. As you'll see with this copy, I've already started itemising some of the things that I want to go and see with little stickies. The fifth thing you need to know, go at the beginning of the festival if you can. For the week before that, the festival is open. So that is what's called preview week. Now the thing about preview week is that there will be plenty of what's called 2-for-1 shows. What they're wanting is they're wanting people to go at the show at the beginning of the festival, and so that you can actually review the show, talk about the show, and that will get more bums on seats is the plan. So if you can, it's cheaper to go out and see shows that first week. Now the thing about the festival is it is not cheap. So let me just quickly check the app and see what the average price of a show is. Phone's a bit slow, it's old. So let's have a look at booking a show. So I do want to go and see. There's a few people I want to go see, and we'll talk about them in a little while. But they're usually people that I've actually been to see before, and their shows are very good actually. So where's this app doing? What am I doing here? We've got My Fringe. So if we say that the average price of a show, and they're about an hour, is going to be £10 to £15 on average, you can see that if you go to 5 shows a day, it soon gets very expensive. So it's always good if you're going with somebody. It's a bit hard if you're not going with somebody, but if you're going with somebody, going 2-for-1, it's a really good way of sharing the cost of actually being at the Fringe. Number 6, you need to book this fairly early on. Book tickets for the Radio 4th on the Fringe show. It's not cheap. There won't be 2-for-1s or any of that sort of business, but it does sell out. It's usually over the first preview weekend in one of the bigger theatres. And what it is, if I remember last year, I think it was about £26 a ticket, something like that. But what it will do is you'll get a whole breadth of the whole festival Fringe. So you will have comedians, you will have dance troupes, you will have literally every type of act that you can think about will probably be on that show. So each show will be different. So you could go more than once, but you'll get a really good idea of what's happening at the Festival Fringe. So that's the Radio 4th on the Fringe. The Radio 4th is the local radio station, and it's hosted by 2 of their DJs who are very funny in their own right. It's always worth trying, although not cheap, but it gives you a good feel for things. And because you're seeing a shorter version of an act show, you can make the decision whether you want to go and see the full show. What they used to do, I don't think they did it last year, but the previous years, the last 20-30 minutes of the show, and it used to go on for about 3 hours. It's slightly shorter now, I think. And I remember a few years ago they had Katie Tunstall as the main act, and she came along and played for about half an hour and did an absolutely brilliant concert at the end of it. I don't think they do that anymore. They certainly didn't do that last year. Who knows what they'll do this year, but definitely worth going to see if you can. Number 7, if you've paid your money and you're not enjoying the show, you're quite within your rights to get up and leave. Now, the thing about Edinburgh Festival Fringe is there are things that are absolutely brilliant, but there's also, because there are literally so many shows going on every day, and to be fair, some of them are not very good. I do remember a few years ago, a spectacularly poor musical. This was back in 2010, and I can't remember the name of the actual, but we'll call it Indiana Jones and the Terrible Cast. It was an Indiana Jones themed play. It had kids in it. There was Nazis. It was pretty horrible, really. The show was so bad that after 10 minutes, I decided to leave. And I leaned over to my wife and said, "I'll see you outside. I'm going to leave." She said in a panic, "Don't leave me." So we agreed that the next time the lights went down and the scene would change, we would scarp her. Now, I had realised where the entrance to the theatre was, and that's another good thing. Always make sure you know your way out. And this venue was a church hall without stage, and we were sitting in the front row. So the lights go down, my wife makes a dash for what she thinks is the lighted exit, but in fact, that door was to backstage. So I had a dilemma. Do I follow my wife backstage, or do I go out the proper way? And being the dutiful husband, I went out and followed my wife backstage, where we had to apologise to the cast for leaving so soon, which I have to say I thought was really funny. And every time we go past that church hall, and it will still be a venue this year, I will point it out to my wife and say, "Remember what happened there?" Next, watch out for Fringe staff handing out free tickets. Now, to be fair, this will only really happen right at the beginning of the festival. Again, because they want those reviews, they want people to say good things about the shows. And I've only really seen it happen near the Gilded Balloon, which is the university, which is Bristol Square area. If a show hasn't sold very well and its showtime is looming, what sometimes happens is that the staff are sent out with free tickets to get bums on seats in the hope that obviously punters will recommend the show to others. I mean, I do remember a few years ago, we were literally just outside the Gilded Balloon, and this girl offered us 2 free tickets for a show which was called Two Men and a Banana. And it was literally, the show was due to start in about 10 minutes. It was in a really small room, probably the room would seat about 30 people, if that. And so we went up there, we queued, we were first in the queue. And when we went in, there was 4 of us. There was me and my wife, another lady, and a gentleman. The 2 guys that were doing the show was brilliantly funny. It's fantastic. And what they got us to do, because there's only 4 of us, we introduced ourselves to each other. What was really quite sad is one lady had to leave early because he was quite late, and she had to go and get a bus. So that brought us down to 3. But what it did mean is that for the rest of the time in the Fringe, whenever you stood in a queue talking to somebody, and you get talking to people, and people say, "So what have you seen that's really good?" We were able to turn around and say, "Go and see Two Men and a Banana," because it was brilliant. So hopefully the rest of their run, they got much better audiences than on the night that we went. Another one, don't forget to go and support what's called the Free Fringe. Now, the Free Fringe, it started in 1996 by a guy called Peter Buckley Hill. And there are a couple of Free Fringes. They've sort of amalgamated now. There was PBH, which was Peter's company, and for a long time, his arch enemy was the Laughing Horse Comedy team. And I believe that that's all been sorted now, but there is a Free Fringe. Most of it will be in sort of smaller venues and pubs. And the way that it works is you go see the show, and then a bucket will go around at the end, or they'll ask for a donation, that sort of thing. Usually it's no more than a £5. So it's certainly cheaper to go to the Free Fringe than to go to the fully fledged Fringe, where you're going to have to buy a ticket in advance and all the rest of it. You'll sometimes find that some really well-known people will do a show on the main festival Fringe. Phil Jupitus is a good example. Last year, Phil Jupitus did about 3 or 4 shows. He did a couple of shows on the main Fringe, and then he did another couple of shows. One of them is Porky the Poet, and he did those on the Free Fringe as well. So you do get that sort of thing. In fact, one of the best shows that I think I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years is a guy called Trevor Locke. So although he's absolutely brilliant, you know, he's gone up from working in a small venue at the back of a pub to a much larger venue, and he would always sell out and every show. You know, I've seen him the last 3 years, and it's always been full. And last but not least, shows to go and see. I've already mentioned Trevor Locke, Beck Hill, who is an Australian comedian who now resides in London. Brilliantly funny. Her show, very gentle, nothing offensive, but she's great. There's just some of the people, and I'll put the links down below so that you can actually go and check those people out. If there's any shows that you think I ought to maybe go to, put them in the comments down below. And if you've any questions, put it in the same place and I'll answer whatever I can. Thanks so much for watching. Be great if you could subscribe if you haven't already, and ding that little bell, and a thumbs up is always much appreciated. So see you in the next video. All the best. Bye bye.